Thank you very much, John. The work that I'm going to present today is actually a very small study. It was done by an undergraduate student of mine and of Oliver Berman's. And unlike Pauline's student, if you were in her talk earlier, to who her student was too scared to come and fly to the UK, my student is currently emigrating to Australia. She's trying to get away from me. So I'm presenting the work really for her today. We've done some additional analysis with it. So Oliver and I are interested actually in a range of feline vocalizations, and we've got a number of projects working in this area, and this is just one of the parts that we're looking at, focused on the cat meow, but we've got quite a lot going on with the cat purr as well. If anybody's interested, I can chat to you about it. So this is looking at human classification of the context, the meows that happen in different types of contexts, and whether we're any good at actually knowing what they are. So why are we interested in looking at vocalizations in the cat? They're actually an incredibly vocal animal. They exhibit a really, really wide range of vocalizations, and we know very little about a lot of the function of those, and even identifying and classifying those is quite difficult. Why are they so vocal? Well, there's lots of potential hypotheses as to why that might be. Free-ranging cats generally are thought to be nocturnal or crepuscular. So they are existing and very active in low light conditions where other forms of communication, such as visual communication, may not be so useful. We know in free-ranging cats that they do have a social group structure in certain situations, and that within those, the time with mother and offspring, they have a relationship which endures over time. And if you read John's book, you can basically, he summarizes all this in a beautiful chapter. And what type of vocalizations do they emit? Well, the types of vocalizations could be put into three broad categories. There's those that we call murmur sounds, which are made when the mouth is held closed. So if you look at the middle picture, and that's generally things like purring, and you can see the drooling that sometimes occurs with that. There are those that occur when the mouth is held open, and they're generally called intensity sounds, and they're things like the hiss and the spit. And there are those that are called vowel sounds, when the mouth is opened and gradually closed. And that's the main sound in that group is the meow. And that's what we're really interested in. The meow is something that's generally only focused to the human. It's very, very rare to see cases of cat-cat communication using the meow. And with free-ranging feral-type cats, it's rare to see the meow happen to a human once they get beyond juvenile state. So it's very much something that domestication and residing with humans has evolved this meow towards humans. So that's why we were interested in it. I found a really nice paper that had looked into this area that was done in 2003 by Nicholas Nicastro. And what he looked at was 5 different scenarios, 5 different contexts that occur in the home in which cats will often meow towards their owners. And he looked at how well people could classify or discriminate the context from just hearing the meows on an audio playback. Now, these weren't the owners of the cats. These were just a general population, and not necessarily a population that were owning cats themselves. We have adapted our work from his 5 scenarios, but his scenarios contain both affiliative scenarios or positive scenarios and more agonistic scenarios. So things such as antagonizing the cat through repeated grooming, and food-related behavior and affiliative contact with the cat are some of the examples that he did. He found that people were able to classify the context in which the meows were emitted, but only very marginally so, only very modestly so. It was a significant result, but they weren't that good at it. But what was interesting to me was that they got better at it if they had reported a regular frequency with cats, or a general affinity for cats, or if they had owned cats in recent time. So people were slightly better at it if they had an affinity or they knew them. And what he was interested in was really hypothesizing whether these meows acted as what we call referential signals. So he was interested in a referential signal basically is, or he hypothesized the 2 things that are most important in it, are that the sound has to be emitted reliably within that context, so it's highly correlated with that context, And for it to be a signal, the person who receives the signal has to behave reliably in the same way. So it seems that they're not referential signals to us because people aren't that good at identifying the different contexts. So what we were interested then was, can this classification be improved when the meows that you hear in the different contexts are from your own cats rather than just unknown cats? So we compared known and unknown. With the idea or the hypothesis behind this being that if it is something that is individual, it's specific, you'll be better at it if it's your own cat because you'll have been able to learn your own cat's signals. And we also did a little bit of acoustic analysis, which is not an area of expertise of mine, so please don't ask me difficult questions about that. But we looked to see on some very, very basic acoustic parameters whether the vocalizations were more similar from the same context in comparison to different contexts. So we adapted 4 scenarios from the Castro and Oren's paper. Some of the scenarios that they had for welfare reasons we wouldn't be able to replicate in the UK. So we looked at food preparation, where the owner went about the normal preparing of their food, opening the sachet, scooping the biscuits, and we recorded any vocalizations that were made during that time. Can we play that one? As an example of it. Food withholding, which shows in the second picture on the right-hand side, which was not so common, but a period where we've just held the food just before the cat was given it. So they have an anticipation of the food there, but it may be slightly more agonistic or frustration or negative related because the food is being withheld. Can we play that one? You could probably guess which cat is mine, right? I don't know what that says about the owner, but if everybody wants to look at that. We looked at a physical separation sort of paradigm where we put the cat on within the home, but on a different, at the other door. So that's quite a common situation. A cat will often meow to be let in or let out. And the door was ajar, but not enough so that the cat could get through. Can we play that one? And the last one, the Castro looked at vocalizations when you were involved in a physical interaction with the cat. And we did pilot this, but what we tended to find that the cats just purred. Or we got chirrups or trills or vocalizations that definitely had that sort of element within them rather than a pure meow. So instead what we did was the cat was at a distance from us and we called the cat, or the owner called the cat, and we recorded any vocalizations that were made there. We still did get quite a lot of purring, but we definitely got more meows. So if we can play that one. Okay. So Victoria went into the homes of 10 different people and recorded, within them they had 15 cats, recorded from them. We successfully captured meows of 10 of those cats in all 4 scenarios. We got about 100 meows in total. And you can see there were 6 female, 4 male cats, a mean age of 6.9 years. 7 of them were domestic short hairs, so regular moggies. There was 1 Burman, 1 Bengal, and 1 Asian. I think you probably know which was the Asian. And from this, we came back, we edited those clips. We tried, where possible, to pick the first meow that occurred in that context. We only looked at single meows. I should point out that when the Castro did this work, he looked at both single meows and bouts of meows. And people did get better when it was a bout of meows rather than a single. But we started just with the single for this work. Where there was interference or too much background noise, or the first meow was not easy to isolate, we went to the next one that was most clear. And we then went back to the homes of the people, and Victoria got them to do a little online questionnaire where they listened back to the vocalizations and marked what context they thought they occurred in. So there were 8 females, 2 males that completed this, biased towards females, but that's normal that's representative of the cat-owning population. And a mean age of 35.5 years. And they did this procedure for the 4 vocalizations from their own cats, which were randomized the order of the context, and for unknown cats. And we randomized which unknown cat they got. It was always the same one for the 4 contexts, but different across participants. So that is just an example of what it looked like online. They could listen to the vocalization as many times as they wanted. They were plugged into headphones. and they had to pick which context they thought each vocalization came from. We then used a software analysis program called Avisoft SAS Lab Pro to look at different parameters of these calls, and we're still carrying on this work. Actually, we're doing some stuff with this with the cat purr. It's quite complex. But what we did just for this was just to look at the duration of the single meow and its mean fundamental frequency. Well, what did we find? Well, they had 4 options that they could, 4 different contexts that they could get correct. If they got, binomial distribution showed that if they got 3 or 4 of those, then they were performing above chance, so we could take that as a significant result. This was the case for 40% of the participants when the vocalization belonged to their own cat. So actually 40% of those people got 100% right. They got all of their contexts. However, nobody reached significance when it was the vocalizations from an unknown cat. And when we compared these with the tested difference, the number of correct responses, as expected, owners were significantly better at identifying the context in which the meow was emitted when it was their own cat in comparison to an unknown cat. And you can see this here from the graph. So just our participants separated. And then we were interested then, are people better at identifying one context in comparison to others? Were they more likely to get one of them right? And you could see for both the known and the unknown cats, people were much better at context A. And context A was a barrier, which was probably considered the most negative of all the vocalizations that they made, the context that was emitted in. And that's quite interesting because for 2 reasons, really. Contextual, he did do some acoustic parameter work as well, and he found he had the situation I told you about where he antagonized the cats by grooming on them, that the variation within the calls that were emitted there was the tightest, was the smallest. So then you would expect people would be better at identifying then if the variation was much closer. But also I was thinking about it, in attention solicitation, food prep and food withholding, the cat is with you in a very close vicinity. And there's lots of other signaling that's going on that you can pick up from visual signals. But with a barrier, you don't necessarily see the cat, so the only thing you've got to attend to is the vocal signal, the verbal signal. So I think you're much more likely to attend to that and be aware of it, which might be why people are a bit better about it. And you have to go and do something about it, because it's pretty annoying if you don't, because they carry on meowing. Okay. So the analysis of these acoustic parameters, we found no significant differences between the contexts on either of the parameters, the duration of the call or the fundamental frequency of the meows. And this wasn't really surprising. This was more just us doing confirmatory analysis, because previous work has shown that the variation in meows is pretty big. But to us, it suggests that cat meows from a range of cats within the same context do not share similar characteristics, which also helps understand why people are only really good when it's their own cats. So the results suggest that human classification of cat meows is dependent on learning an individual's vocalizations in response to different contexts, rather than learning a common rule across all cats. So it may be that once you've learned your cat's vocalizations for its different contexts, they may act as a referential signal to you, but only for that one cat, not across cats as a species per se. I'm quite interested to see whether these vocalizations are owner reinforced, and we think through domestication they've been shaped and reinforced by owners. But we didn't do any work to see if the variation within cats from the same household was tighter or closer than variation across the board, and that would be some nice work to do. These 5 vocalizations are going to play you. They're all from the same context, which was food withholding. The first 3, Cosmos, Herbie, and Horace, all live in the same house, and the last 2 live in different houses. And I just wanted to give you a flavour of the type of variation that we do here within a context, and whether you think the first 3 are more similar, if the case is that they are shaped by the owner's response, or whether there's as much variation in them as there are with the other cats. So if we can play each of those in sync, that'd be great. Okay, so you can see that, I mean, if cat 2 and 3 are actually living in the same home and are related, and their vocalizations are so very, very different. So going forward with this, we have another number of students working in this area, and we have a master's student at the moment looking at whether you're better depending on the level of attachment you report to your cat. So if you're, the idea is some people were really good at doing it, they got 100% with their cat, but some people even with their own cat were pretty bad. So what makes that difference? What factor is it that makes you really good at it? So we're also looking at length of ownership to see, all these people lived for a minimum of 6 months with their cats, but if you've lived longer, are you better at it? If you're more attached, are you better at it? And I must admit, I was pretty rubbish. And so I think, but I have 3 cats, so it would be very interesting to look at the number of cats you own and whether that influences how good you are. So I just want to say thanks to the cat owners and the cats that took part, and I can take any questions.